What is going on, yo? So, I'm coming in Procreate today just to do, like, I don't know, some kind of a quick character design sketch. I'm just gonna use whatever techniques I see fit, whatever brushes come to me. I'm kind of inspired 'cause I was going through some of my older stuff and I seen some like process drawings and I was like, whoa, that's cool. Funnily enough, the stuff I was looking at was not done in Procreate. It was done in Artist Studio Pro, but with brushes that I pretty much have to hand and stuff. So, and this was done like 2018. And I was just like, I need to do some stuff like that again, because it's not often I open Procreate up just with the intention of like having like a mess around. Usually, when I open this thing up, I'm just doing some kind of quick experimentation or I'm working on something for somebody else. So I thought I'd kind of like try and come in and do something more for me, but at the same time using some techniques that I used to use and stop being so uptight. Like I found that like with Procreate, I'm quite uptight with how I do stuff versus like how I would have been in Photoshop. I mean, how I would have been with a different software. I act like I don't know the software sometimes. And I've used it for years now. Like it's pretty much, I don't even use Photoshop anymore. So I need to treat it like it's my software, like it's the app that, belongs to me, because it does. I've been using it for like as like a thoroughbred for years. So I don't know if y'all can see what's happening here, but I can. So this is evolving into like some kind of a what I can best describe as like a villain character design. And I definitely think that's what it is. Uh, some kind of dark character design, maybe a dark wizard. Um, but definitely not any kind of light character. There was a time when it probably could have gone either way, but I've gone with a darker color palette now, so I kind of have to stick to it. So I established this ages ago. This is like the staff. I established this at the very start. And that was kind of a direction I wanted to go in from the very start. It's funny because I'm just using the round brush. Um, the Procreate round brush is pretty good. I've used it for a bunch of different things. But I want to kind of get away from that type of brush and get something with a little bit more grit. So I'm going to switch out to the texture round brush, which paints like this. It's pretty much beat for beat what it is when you get it in Photoshop. Honestly, this brush has been passed around a lot, but I do think it's Jama Jabraev. I don't know how to say his name, but I think it's like one of his main brushes from his brush pack. I pretty much think I got it for free, but I think it is a brush that you're not supposed to give away. So I don't think I'll be giving it away. But, it is 2023 now, and, now he's moved on to 3D and stuff, so I'm not sure how upset he'll be. And I'm not even sure if it's his brush. I just know it's the main one he ended up using. I don't know if he created it, but... So I kind of need to race through this quickly, or quicker, because I am starting to feel my body get tired. It's quite late, and I have children and stuff, and I've got to get up early, so I'm trying to see what I can do in like 30 minutes on this. I think like when you're giving yourself like a quick goal, like to do something quick, it's always imperative to understand what your tools can do and understand like what techniques you can employ to get the job done a little bit faster. On another note, so these Dark Lord characters, I don't know what it is. There's just something about them that I gravitate towards. You know, something about like the Darker Lord, bossy, kind of like type character with all the underlings, and there's something about them that just sticks out to me. Maybe it's the affinity for them to always be defeated by the hero. Maybe it's just how cool they look. But there's always something about these type of characters that really does stick out to me. I'm switching over to this. This is another classic Photoshop brush. Really good brush for just painting in high opacity, which is what I'm trying to do now. So when I was younger, I really used to be like amazed by like people doing speed paints. And then as you get older, you do more and more of them. So I used to literally digitally paint like, I don't know, 3-4 times a day. My favorite artist used to be a guy called Kekai Katoki, and I used to do a bunch of stuff. Well, no, not just him, but he used to be one of my favorites, and he still is. I still think his work's amazing. But as you get older and you don't, the magic wears off. You start to be like, well, I could do his stuff now. And I don't know if he'd take that as an insult if he ever saw this video or whatever, but you start to say, well, what they're doing is not so magical anymore, because I feel like I've reached a professional level as well. And I felt like that from quite a while ago, right? But those people used to pretty much just do work with like their own brushes. So a lot of the just painting stuff and like going through the process of creating stuff from straight paint, because a lot of guys now use 3D and they use like photo textures and stuff like to start their process. Whereas a lot of these guys, the Kekai Katokis, all of these guys in that time, were kind of painting a lot of stuff raw straight into the canvas, just getting into it. There'd be some photo texturing because every concept artist used photo texture, but their process was very much kind of like built upon just throwing down strokes, putting down paint. And that's where I've kind of developed a lot of my skill from, is just spending time like talking about days and hours just painting on blank canvases from black and white to whatever it is. And it's a technique that's not used as much now, but it used to be in my in the 2008s to 10s and stuff. It was a heavily used kind of like well-known way of just doing concepting, was just having these kind of like blank canvases that you just formulate yourself. And people like Anthony Jones, they still do it now, and they have Gumroad tutorials on, doing it and stuff like that. But in this new generation of like 3D and stuff like that, and everyone seems to be able to use Blender now and stuff, a lot of guys aren't concepting like this anymore. They're doing something else. So I'm going to just throw in some highlights real quick. Just a few highlights here and there to just add some detail to this mask. The more I look at it, I'm just more and more like seeing the Darksiders 2 inspiration. Darksiders 2 is one of my absolute favorite video games of all time. I replayed it a few years ago, and then I instantly I think I deleted my save by doing some weird like DLC thing, or New Game Plus thing. I just didn't want to start it again, but I spent I don't know how many hours playing that thing again. That game is so good. It's such a beautiful game, and Joe Madureira's art direction is just ridiculous, man. Everything in that game is so cool. And I literally got into those games because of Joe Mad, because I was following Joe Mad's artwork. If you don't know who Joe Mad is, go look him up. He was a penciler at Marvel Comics for a long time. Well, let's just call him a penciler just for comics for a long time, and then he ended up getting into games with one of his inkers or one of his colorists, a guy called Christian Leitner, who now I believe used to or still is working on the Diablo franchise. But these guys were solid, man. These guys were really good at creating kind of like the visuals in comics, and they kind of branched out to games, you know, and there's not enough of those guys in there. And when I think about comics guys, because I always wanted to be a comics guy, they're quite, a lot of them are like Swiss Army knives. Because in comics, when you think about the comic industry, there really are no rules. Like, you can pretty much kind of go forward and try and do whatever it is you're trying to do, because there's no one telling you can't color this way, you can't do this, you can't do that. So you see a bunch of guys in comics doing things like that seem like concept art, you know. A lot of it, you know, you got a point now where a lot of people are just straight digitally painting stuff, where it used to be you had to color like a colorist, right? But as I said, because there's not really any rules, people can break through doing some stuff, like even like Francis Manapur, for example. Like, this guy broke through basically kind of like creating the book himself, you know. And there's guys like him previously, like Alex Ross and stuff, but he was doing it in a more comic-y way. He was kind of breaking through, doing like really cool, stylish looking comics, pretty much doing the whole process himself, you know, start to finish, you know, inking, painting, everything, just going straight in and doing it himself. And I really commend the guy for that. For some reason, my Apple Pencil stopped working. Like, I can't paint now. Put it back on the charging dock. It's turning up and down the... This is strange. This has never happened before. It won't paint, it won't smudge, it won't do anything. Strange, right? That you guys can hear it, right? You guys can hear it interacting. It's turning up and down the brush wheel, but it won't paint. Change brushes. Nope. This has never happened before. Hit gallery, go back. Okay, now we back in. Strange. But yeah, to continue what I was saying, and I don't know what point I was on, but in the old days, and you know, it was crazy when I say in the old days, I mean like 2010, 2009, you know, literally a lot of guys just used to paint everything from scratch, you know. And then now it's like there's a bunch of ways to do everything. And I'm the same, like I'm doing a lot of video stuff. So anytime I need a video tutorial, I'll instantly go find a tutorial. But I think there's always a part of me that tries to always find my own way to do stuff, because you learn by being in the trenches, and you learn by needing to fix things. When you need to fix something, you'll learn a way around something. And not learning a way around something will be huge. It will be huge for your overall growth, and just for your mind to remember the situations and how you need to defeat certain situations, versus just finding a tutorial. You know, there are tutorials, but they're not always gonna save you when you need something to, you know, to be done, or when you're not always gonna type in the right phrase. You're not always gonna come across the right video that fixes a completely specific problem. You know, so sometimes it's good to just start trying to work on ways to make things happen. Like, for example, people were painting on Photoshop back when it had one layer, right? My issue with Procreate as well, this is another thing, is that Procreate, for some reason, doesn't let you have one layer. It always has to have a background layer. I really dislike this, because I used to paint in Photoshop with just the background layer. And Procreate has this right here, this background color layer that you're not seemingly able to turn off. Whereas me, what you can do though, you can go right here, you can go copy canvas, right here, boom, and you can paste. Now you've got one layer. You can just kind of work off that layer, and you can do what you want to that layer. But I used to like, in Photoshop, I used to just, back in the day, I used to just change my brush settings. So in Photoshop, you could right click your brush, shift right click, and you can make your brush like any blending mode. Like, but quick, I think you can do it in Procreate, but you have to go into the brush. Like, you have to go into like the brush creator and click on the brush and do a bunch of stuff, right? Which is kind of long and intrusive, and your brush will stay like that. Whereas in Photoshop, you could just right click and just kind of like switch out how you want the brush to be. So right now what I'm doing is, like with watercolors, I'm adding a wash. I'm just adding a wash of color to the canvas. It works good if you add a wash of a few different colors, not just one. It looks more realistic. But yeah, I'm adding some wash stuff over the top of my canvas just to give more teeth and everything to the canvas. If you don't want the wash to be in certain areas, select like a very white light color or a white. And this, I'm doing this on a multiply layer just so people know. Actually select like very bright for the face. Up here, I'm going to brighten this area as if to give off a glow. I just did that with this wash. And there you have it. So that's a wash real quick. Just to kind of give some extra teeth and stuff from that white we had. But as I said, these are tricks I used to use all the time in Photoshop. And then on top of this, we can make a layer called hard light, right? Hard light is a strange blending mode because it either really illuminates stuff like this, that gives you this really solid yellow, or it will give you like it's hard to explain the alternative for this, but it will give you like, so what I'm doing real quick, I'm going to explain what else it gives you, but I want to just quickly explain what I'm doing. So right here, I'm adding an edge to the Dark Lord and highlight a highlighted edge. I'm using a hard light layer just so that side, really has an edge and you can really see the form of the character over there. So this is the other thing hard light does. It either really gives you darkness or it really gives you brightness. So I added that edge, and then what I'm doing now is I'm adding some shadows. So, and that's the usage of hard light. It's quite unpredictable, but it can have really good varying effects that can take your image to a different place and add lots of depth that you didn't know that you could just add with one layer. So look, the difference between hard light and without hard light, the level of depth we get is massive. There was a guy called Joe Avazido, I think it was his name, that used to use hard light a lot. There's another guy, Stefan Sajic or Nebeziel. He's quite famous on DeviantArt. He does a lot of stuff for Top Cow, and he used to do a lot of stuff for Image Comics and stuff. And now he's doing stuff for DC. And I've watched his career kind of grow and blossom. This guy, since I was a little kid, or since I was 15, 16, I'd say 16 because I discovered him when I was 16. Shout out Corey Cull, an old friend of mine that now works at Apple. He introduced me to this guy's work. He showed me straight up. One time I seen Corey doing a digital painting when I was at college with a mouse, and I rode up to him and he was telling me who his inspirations were, because obviously I was intrigued with him because I was like, yo, this guy's painting something. And I just got there, I didn't know how to paint on Photoshop yet. And he was like, he's a second year, so he already done his first year of trying to learn this software. And he told me like his inspirations in terms of like the visuals and what he wants to get to, and he showed me the Bezier stuff. And I was entranced, and this, I think all until today, Nebezio's stuff is still entrancing. His older stuff probably more so, because his newer stuff's quite formulated. It's quite rough. It's not as serious as his old. His old stuff was like, it's like he was fighting for his life. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna merge all of this into one layer, all of it, boom. So literally we have one layer, and just like that, from doing hard light, from doing a little bit of multiply, we've added so much extra depth. So what I want to do now is, because we have all these, I'm going to circle them so you guys can see. We have all these spots, right? where like there's not the right color precisely. So what we can do is we can go up here, new layer, and we can make it darken. We can grab this base color and we can just kind of glaze over, and that kind of fills in a lot of the gaps. Some of it will keep for texture purposes, but then some of it we just actually will just fill in, just so we have like a more cohesive, sensible image. And as I said, some of it you can keep to be texture, you know. See, look at the difference. Very messy, reasonably tidy. Okay, so merge that down. Back to one layer again. And then let's do some let's do some lasso stuff. The lasso tool is a great tool. Use it as much as possible, because it creates interesting forms and shapes that are extremely hard, that help your overall design kind of like shine. I'm gonna throw a few hard forms and shapes here. Okay, so we have this Dark Lord. And we haven't discovered if he's good or bad yet. I'm going to make his eye kind of like a green, which means maybe he's a good dude. You know, who knows? He might be a good dude. You know, he might not be evil. He might just look evil because of his appearance and whatever. And, that's deep, but maybe he's not. Maybe he's a good dude. Starting to try and define his form a little bit more than I was. As I said, I love to kind of go in and just have a mess around with certain brushes. So here I am with the fan brush, just kind of glazing away at stuff. And earlier, I threw in like some accents of like blue. I'll be pushing and pulling those as well. I'm just gonna mess with this fan brush a little bit because the opacity is too high, man. It's just high. Maximum opacity, minimum opacity. Why is it not? There we go. That should help. A little bit of flow always helps. There we go. Sometimes if you're having issues with your brush's opacity and it doesn't seem like there's anything wrong with it, it's the flow. Because flow is the frequency of how hard these strokes come out. Just a little FYI for people. Some people don't know. So what these hatching lines do is they add like a bunch of detail, and it just makes the image look a lot more detailed than it actually is. Detail is an interesting thing within itself, like the idea of what detail is. Because a lot of the time when we look at detail, we think, well, it's the contents of the image. You know, if you have a character that has like 5 belts on, he has a bunch of different colored garments and stuff, that is a detailed character. But then you can get a character like this that literally has, it seems like he is a sharp, he's a sharp cloak wearing character. His cloak seems to have a life of its own where it sharpens and it stands up. And that gives him a little bit of detail. But other than that, this character is pretty basic in terms of like detail, right? But you can create detail with tricks like what I'm doing now. Oh yeah, so this speed painting style. So I'm influenced by a bunch of people, and everyone's influenced by people. But there was a guy. He used to and he's still, no, well, he doesn't really anymore. I don't know if he's still alive or anything, but, or maybe he's just making a lot of money off Patreon. I don't know, but there's a guy, his name was Axel Torvinius, and he used to make YouTube videos, like speed paintings. And he used to make loads of them, like all the time. I think he used to work at a games development company, but he was still like quite active on YouTube. And art YouTube's fairly new. You know, it exists now, and there's a bunch of people on it, but it's not that new. There was a time when it was pretty dead. And Tor Vigneus was one of the kind of OGs that kind of like used to post these cool speed paintings, like, because his work's cool and he was, clearly a professional. And his speed painting style was quite kind of like what I've been doing today. Lots of interesting brushes, creating lots of interesting little forms and stuff like that. And but he kept it quite, he didn't try and go into detail too much. Like, he didn't try and go anywhere near being realistic. He wasn't trying to do realistic lighting. He was just trying to create cool forms a lot of the time. And I tried to do that here a little bit, but what ends up happening with me is I end up using some texture brushes, and they just add a lot of stuff. I'm not going to take any credit for this turning out reasonably realistic, but there's a lot of the brushes and the techniques that I was using. Also I've painted literally for days on end in my life. I've done a bunch of painting, which has kind of helped me develop my realism, I guess. Okay, we're getting somewhere. So this is starting to shape up. I do kind of like the direction this is going. I'm going to whip out the smudge tool and start doing little bits of smudging. I think I'll use the plastic wrap smudge tool. So the plastic wrap is a brush that I used to use in Photoshop that has these teeth, and it smudges like this. The reason I'll use that is because I can use it to kind of get this cool effect on the edges. Why I'm doing that, it just helps me to hide some of my edges, and it also helps to create cool texture with some of the stuff. So it's looking, sorry I kicked my cup over, but for that loud bang. So we're starting to shape up. We're starting to kind of have some kind of an image here, right? So what I want to do now is just mess around with some effects, because I don't want to spend too much time on this. So I've spent years of my life like trying to figure out how to make like cool effects in Photoshop and whatever app I'm using to paint, right? And there's a bunch of ways to do it. So this is one way. You make a bunch of like lines, and then you go to right here, you duplicate the layer. You can make the layer completely white, which is something people do. Then you can, go underneath the one you had before, duplicate that, and then you can blur it. That makes like a lightning. Okay, if that was what you was going for, there you go, lightning. I'm gonna group these two together because that's not what I was going for. So bring this back in. So I create all of these strands. First and foremost, I'm going to change the blending mode to add. You can just go between screen and add, but I think add's a little bit more vibrant. And I'm going to whip out my smudge tool. I'm just going to start smudging. Turn the opacity a little higher. I'm just going to start smudging. And what the smudge does, it makes the energy look a little bit more not like lightning, because lightning is this very informed type of energy. And it makes this energy seem a little bit more spiritual. That's what I was going for, like a dark lord. Maybe he's a dark shaman. Maybe he's not dark anything, but either way, you know. Hopefully he's just like one of the elders. Who knows, right? I'm going to smudge all of this. I'll tell you guys a quick funny story. Back in the day, with my 4 gig RAM expensive laptop, when 4 gig RAM was expensive, smudge tool was very difficult to do with Photoshop. And then Coral Painter, my other kind of like favorite software, could just smudge easily. Like, it was ridiculously good how good Painter could smudge. It wasn't even fair. It didn't even make any sense how good the smudge was. So I've got this brush here. It's a super soft, right? It's like this is a regular soft, right? And then this is the super soft. Super soft's just a little bit softer. Really good for creating fog and stuff. So I'm going to change this layer to, maybe I'll use color dodge. I never use color dodge, but you know, Rush Draws, you know, he's somewhere watching, you know. We're gonna color dodge. It's color dodge time. So I like to turn this saturation down a little bit, turn the brightness down, and probably just create some cool light on these edges. Okay, fantastic. So also what I want to do is get really saturated and really dark with this stuff, and just kind of like cool. And the hand a little bit. Because it's a super soft though, it's really, the opacity of the brush is really big. So I'm going to quickly switch over to a regular soft. In my recents, go to a regular soft. I'm just going to start touching certain areas. I don't want to be too affected by this, because it will affect everything a lot of the time. Okay. So what I want to do now is make an overlay layer, right? And I would have done all of this in the same layer if I had the same options as Photoshop, but hey, so overlay. And what I want to do now is get a really saturated orange color, turn the opacity really low, and just kind of like add some darkness to stuff. Start adding like little bits of darkness away from the focal points to kind of give the focal points more attention. And then I want to take this kind of greeny color and I want to glaze it over, kind of like and kind of make it a little bit darker, more saturated, and just glaze it over this area. And then we're going to do some finishing touches, just because I don't want to spend too much time on this piece. So I'm going to go to FX. I have all these like little flitters and stuff and all these cool little things that I like to add. And we're just going to dab these around. Get the glow colors, and we're going to do the same with the glow stuff. You know, coming from the staff, we're just going to have a bunch of, you know, same from the hand and stuff. Change to a different one. There we go. Change to some black. Just add a bunch of debris to the image. Something I really enjoy doing. And that is literally it. That was a little, normally I'd add some chromatic aberration, but I don't like to always add it to every single image. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flatten everything to one layer. That didn't go right. I'm going to delete these dudes, and I'm going to flatten everything to one layer now. Okay. I'm going to duplicate this layer, and I'm just going to start doing some little final adjustments. I'm going to smudge this completely away, smudge this stuff down. I don't like how that turned out, but hey. I'm going to add some just some texture at the bottom. Kind of like that, that's cool. What I'm doing, I've got this texture brush and it just has these cool artifacts. I'm gonna allow some of that. I think that's really cool. Closer to the face and stuff like that. And maybe I'll have like some light like leaking from the eye. And I'll just smudge that a little bit. A little bit less than that, but still smudge that a little bit. I think we've done a good job with this. So one more duplicate. Go to the chromatic aberration tab. I couldn't resist. Chromatic aberration is always something I used to do to my speed paintings. And then I just get a soft brush and I'll just erase what I don't want, what I don't want aberrating too much. I'd pretty much leave a lot of the other stuff to just be aberrated and just erase what I don't want aberrated, what I want to kind of keep super sharp. Yeah, I can leave a lot of the edges and stuff aberrated. It just doesn't matter that much. I can kind of like fly in little places where I don't want it and just dab those out, you know, for the sake. But, you know, for a lot of it, like this, the staff and stuff, because the staff is like a power item, it can be aberrated out because it's like it's emanating power. And that's literally it. We've done like a speed painting. We created like a Dark Lord. You know, it's literally like something I would have done in Photoshop. Honestly, I probably need to do more stuff like this in Procreate, just for fun, you know, just for giggles. I really enjoyed this process. I can't believe that, you know, using Procreate since 2018 now. So, you know, coming up to 5 years, I haven't sat down and really done many of these. And, you know, there's a part of me that feels shame about that. But then there's a part of me that understands like what I've been doing. I've had children, I've been busy, I've been doing a bunch of stuff. So, you know, I can't just be hard on myself about it. But at the same time, it's like, yo, we could have been making these and it would have been cool, you know. And sometimes you got to look at it like that, like it would have been cool, you know, just for me in general, you know, on an artistic level, like it might have been really cool. So I just threw my logo in there, made it really small, and yeah, that's it. That is the image. So thank you guys for watching. I'm gonna leave this on the screen for a little bit and, you know, let you guys soak that in. Maybe do it like a slow pan kind of like the Dark Lord, you know. Maybe he's a good guy, maybe he's trying to save the world, maybe he's sacrificing his life, who knows, you know. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.